Hey there, welcome to Sheerio Guitar Tutorials. My name's David, and in today's lesson, I'll be teaching you how Ed Sheeran plays Spark in his live performances. That being said, I'll also be calling out how he plays it in his studio recorded performances as well. You'll need your guitar in standard tuning and a capo on the 3rd fret. Let's jump on in. Alright, so no matter what version of the song you choose to play, there are at least 10 chords that you will need to know. So I'll start with those, and then I can get into the extras for the live version. So the first one is shown up on the screen right now. It's an A minor 7. And basically you are going to mute the 6th string with your thumb kind of laid over the top. You're going to have an open 5th string there. You're going to put your middle finger on the 2nd fret relative to the capo of the D string. You're going to have an open G string right there. You're going to have your index finger on the 1st fret of the B string. And you're going to have your pinky finger on the 3rd fret of the high E string. And you strum all the strings there for your A minor 7. From there, you have a G4, G sus4, sorry. You have an F sus2. You have a C. You have a D minor. You have a G add 9. E minor 7, a G5, what I'm calling just a C sus2 star, and a D sus4. So if you just want to play the studio recorded version, those are all the chords you need to know. Now I'll show you the extra chords for the live version. Alright, so the live version uses 4 more chords just to add some more fun to it. So I'll get into those now. They're just kind of slight variations on other chords that I had shown you. So the first one is an F add 9. Pretty similar to the F sus2. The next one's what I'm calling just E minor 7 over F sharp. What I'm calling a G prime. And then another C sus2. Those are all the chords. We can get into the strumming. All right, so now getting into the strumming patterns now. I'll start with the one that is used for the entirety of the studio recorded version, and it's used also for the majority of the live version as well. So it's shown up on the screen now, and it's just the... You'll notice some of those down strums are bolded. You just kind of want to do an emphasized strum for those, just to give it a little kind of extra rhythm to it. And that's it. If you're doing the studio recorded, that's the only strumming pattern you need for the entire song. The rest we can get into now for the live version. So the extra strumming patterns for the live version are shown up on the screen now. These are all the strumming patterns that I saw Ed play in live performance videos that I was watching. And so if you count all those, it could get up to 20 plus, really. It's kind of crazy. But the overall takeaway really is that he just tends to throw in some extra up strums whenever he feels like it, more or less, right? Like I'm assuming every performance he does live is probably slightly different. And so really the main takeaway is if you want to put in an extra up strum here or there during that main strumming pattern, up to you. You know, it'll sound great. That's kind of your choice. So basically what I did was I kept the main strumming pattern for each of those capitalized and bolded, but the lowercase up strums are there to just sort of signal that they're optional, and you can include them if you want, basically. So the one I might recommend including for parts of the bridge, because I think it sounds good, is this one shown up on the screen now that just goes. And you'll notice I still keep the emphasized down strums when there's bold, and I just throw in those little extra optional up strums, which are signaled by the lowercase u's there. So up to you. If you want to pause the screen and kind of practice each of these up strums or strumming patterns, go for it. Like I said, the really takeaway is just you kind of freestyle and throw in some extra up strums as it feels right. So now I'll go part by part on how to play the song. Note before we move forward is from now on I will be showing the strumming patterns for the live version. If you prefer to continue to do the studio recorded version, you still only need to use that one main strumming pattern. That's it. You can ignore all the extra crazy up strums that you'll see throughout the song. As far as chords go, I'll call out which chords are part of the live version, which ones you can ignore. So I have the intro shown up on the screen right now. It's just the A minor 7, G sus4, F sus2, and C chord progression played through one time using the main strumming pattern. And the colors are there to show what chord you play for each part of the strumming pattern. So for example, you would play your A minor 7 for the first 3 down strums, and you play the G sus4 for the rest. And it would be the same for the F sus2 to the C. So the intro in its entirety would just sound like this. And then you get into the first verse. All right, so shown up on the screen right now is verse number 1. It's just the same chord progression from the intro, played through 4 times with an extra C sus2 in there if you would like to do that. So the first go around through the verse, you're just doing the exact same thing as the intro. The second time through the verse, it's a little bit different with the strumming here. So your A minor 7 is still the down, 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 but your G sus4 would sound like this. And you go to your F sus2. Then you would do your C for 3 down strums. And then you would lift off your middle finger, do a down strum, and then hammer that middle finger on to make your C chord. So that's what the H-M stands for. So it would be a down strum for C sus2, hammer on the middle finger, and then you do up, down, up for your C chord. So that whole second line of verse 1 would sound like this. And then from there, the last 2 lines of verse number 1 are pretty much the same as the first line, except the C has an extra up strum thrown in there. So verse number 1 in its entirety would sound like this. So now you're into pre-chorus number 1, which is a bit tricky, so definitely take your time with this, just due to when you play each chord. The one thing I did want to point out that should hopefully make it a little bit easier is that the strumming pattern is the same throughout the entire part here. It's just what chords you play on what strum makes it look a little overwhelming. So just keep that in mind. So you're doing D minor, F sus2, G add 9 chord progression, played through twice with some hammer-ons there for F add 9 and for G sus4. So you start on your D minor and you play down, down, up, down. Then you would go to your F sus2 and play 2 down strums. Go to your F add 9 and do an up, down. Go back to your F sus2 and do down, down, up. So that first part of the first line of your first pre-chorus would sound like this. From there you would have your G section. So you start with your G, add 9, and play the down, down, up, down. Go to your G sus4 for 2 down strums. Then back to your G add 9 for... so that second portion of the first line would sound like this. And that whole first line would sound like this. From there, it's your second line, which is similar in a lot of ways. You start on that D minor again. You go to your F sus2 with no F add 9 this time. This time you start your G portion on your G sus4 though. And you lift that index to G add 9 for the 2 down strums, before putting it back down for an up down strum for G sus4 again, only to then lift it off again for a down, down, up for your G add 9. So that second line of the first pre-chorus would sound like this. And pre-chorus 1 in its entirety would sound like this. So now you're on to chorus number 1 here. It's the same chord progression as the verse, just played through 4 times, and the strumming is obviously different kind of for each chord. So to kind of illustrate the strumming, I might just play through each line here slowly 1 time through, and then you can practice that, and as you get better with that, you can kind of play the whole chorus on your own there. So line number 1 would sound like this. Line number 2 would sound like this. Line number 3. And line number 4. Now we're into break number 1, which is the same chord progression as the chorus, just played through 2 extra times. So if I play this line by line here slowly, line 1 would sound like this. And line 2 would sound like this. Okay, so we're at verse number 2 now, which is that same A minor 7, G sus4, F sus2, C strumming pattern that you play through 4 times. And so even has the same C, sus2 hammer onto the C. Really the only difference is the strumming, obviously. So I'll go line by line slowly here for you to get the idea of the strumming rhythm, and we'll go through verse number 2. So line 1 would sound like this. Line 2. Line 3. And line 4. All right, so now we're back to the pre-chorus. This time it's the second one. And this one is arguably even trickier than the first one, just based on the chords that you're playing. So again, something to keep in mind is that your strumming pattern this whole time is just this. So you play that the whole time. It's just what chords you play during that that makes it tricky. So you're starting on that D minor. Go to your F sus2. Go to your F add 9, back to F sus2. So that whole first section of the first line would sound like. Then you're on to your Gs, starting with your G add 9. And then keeping on the G add 9 for another strum. Going to G sus4. Back to G add 9. So that second half of the first line would sound like this. Getting into the first part of the second line, it's just the same thing as the first. Just playing that quicker, it would sound like this. And then you have the G portion here, which I think is the trickiest bit. So again, starting on your G add 9, G sus4, still G sus4, back to your G Ed 9. And then it's a downstrum G Ed 9 to hammer on your index. Upstrum on your G sus4, pull off your index. Down up on your G Ed 9. So just to play that second half of the last part of pre-chorus 2, it would sound like this. The entirety of pre-chorus 2 would sound like this. On to chorus number 2, which is the same chord progression as chorus number 1. Again, it's just different strumming. So starting with the first line, going slowly here, you would sound like this. Line number 2. Line number 3. And line number 4. So now you're on to break 2, which again is the same chord progression as chorus 2, just played through 2 extra times. The first time it would sound like this. Second time it would sound like this. You're then at the bridge, which is a new chord progression that you play through twice with different strumming patterns. So you start with your E minor 7 and play, at which point you would move to your E minor 7 over F sharp, if you're doing that for the live version. If you're just doing studio recorded, you would just stay on the E minor 7 there. From there you would go to your G5, G prime, again G prime's only if you're doing the live version. Then you go to your C sus2 star, from there you would go to your G5, then your D sus4, and that G5 to D sus4 is in the would be in the studio recorded version as well. So for that first half, you would only leave out the E minor 7 over F sharp and the G prime if you're doing the studio recorded version. Now we're on to the second half of the bridge, and it's the same chord progression, it's just a different strumming pattern for some of the chords. So E minor 7 is one of them that gets the new strumming pattern. It would sound like this. You would do the same thing for your E minor 7 over F sharp as you did in the first half. New strumming pattern for your G5. Same pattern as before for G prime. New strumming pattern for C sus2. New strumming pattern again for G5. New strumming pattern for D sus4. So the bridge in its entirety would just sound like this. Then you'd be on to your final chorus. So now we're on our final chorus here, and this one isn't really different from the first or second, it's just different strumming for the chords that you're playing. So if I go line by line, one at a time, starting on the first line, it would sound like this. Line 2 would sound like this. Line 3. And line number 4. then you're going to your outro. So now we're at our outro, which is just 2 lines of the same chord progression, just with different strumming, and then there's just a little extra bit there at the end. So just going line by line, your first line would sound like this. Your second line would sound like this. And then this last little bit is just played really quietly, and you're kind of doing 1 chord per strumming pattern here as you really wind down the song. So your A minor 7 would sound like this. G sus4. F sus2. And then it's just 3 strums on the C. And then a final one on F sus2. So that's it. That's the entirety of Spark. What I'm going to do now is do a full playthrough to give you something that you can practice and play along to. Enjoy. that's it. If you made it this far, thank you. Let me know what you thought of the tutorial in the comment section down below. If there's a song that you want me to do in the near future, let me know. I can add it to my list. But yeah, don't forget to like the video and subscribe and turn on notifications for future tutorials, as there'll be many more coming in the near future. So until then, thanks.